Earlier this evening, Governor Rick Scott declared a state of emergency for most of the counties here in the Florida Panhandle, including our own, due to the approaching tropical storm Karen. His emergency order also activated the state's Emergency Operations Center, but there's still a lot of uncertainty with this storm. Chief Meteorologist Chris Smith joining us live at the VIPIR 7 Weather Center with the very latest details. Chris?
Yeah, Tom, it wouldn't surprise me at all. From now to this time on Saturday night, we don't see any rainfall here across the Panhandle with Tropical Storm Karen. Now, that doesn't mean we won't eventually see some significant impacts across our area. Right now, there's the center of circulation, has a lot of dry air located on the western side of it, so that's going to be the big battle it's facing as it tries to strengthen. Wind still at 65 miles an hour, pressure at 999 millibars, and it's about 462 miles off to our south-southwest. The latest advisory coming in from the Hurricane Center has this as a tropical storm through landfall, but flirting with hurricane status. Notice at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, you see it back over south of Mississippi, and then as you make your way into Sunday night, it's already up to our north and east. So I think this will be a fast-moving storm system as it comes through, which is going to be good news for us, but the impacts are going to come in late Saturday, early Sunday. So again, nothing through at least Saturday morning and even into Saturday afternoon. Late Saturday, early Sunday, that's going to be the time frame. And right now it looks like rain and wind, those are going to be our primary threats. We'll have more of a rundown on exactly what's going to happen coming up in just a few minutes.
From the VIPIR 7 Weather Center, here is certified meteorologist Chris Smith.
Well, the tropics, that's the big story, and that's what we're going to focus on here first, talking about Tropical Storm Karen. Not a particularly healthy storm system, but it is out there, and it does pose a threat to our area with in the form of some very heavy rainfall. But right now, the blowup of thunderstorm activity right there just over the center of circulation, just off to the east of the center of circulation. Center of circulation is actually right out here. Hurricane hunters have been out there throughout the evening hours checking out the storm. And again, that's the 65-mile-an-hour winds are in a very, very small area talking about out there in the Gulf of Mexico. So again, this isn't going to be a big storm system. It's nothing like Opal or anything like that, even though it's relatively the same date and in the general vicinity of it. But one of the big problems, notice all this dry air back out over across the western Gulf of Mexico. That's just kind of feeding on into the storm system. That's one thing that a tropical system doesn't like, is that dry air. So it's going to be very difficult for Karen to get its act together. Now, the computer models, all in general agreement, bringing this thing in anywhere from Mississippi, but mainly over into the Florida Panhandle. If anything, this evening, some of the models have kind of trended a little bit more in our direction. Certainly not something that we like to see. Now, the official forecast coming from the Hurricane Center, again, does have a landfall somewhere from Alabama back over here into northwest Florida. That's going to occur late Saturday night and early into Sunday, but really, by Sunday night, I mean, as you know, if you've been here, you know that, I mean, when these things move out, they move out quick. Probably a really nice Sunday night here across northwest Florida. As far as the sunset, should be pretty nice. But the first half of the day will be anything but nice. Again, rainfall forecast hasn't really changed as far as the thinking. Now, we'll continue to amend this as we go throughout time, but we're going to say anywhere from 2 to maybe as much as 6 inches of rainfall across our region. Obviously, we don't need any rainfall, but unfortunately, that's going to be the case. But it all can change for the better or for the worse. That's why we continue to follow these storms. Again, this isn't going to be a surge event. Doesn't look like it's going to be much of a tornado event. It's going to be rain and wind across our region. And when we say wind, it's going to be fairly minimal because of the fact that we're just going to see across our region, we're just going to see maybe tropical storm force winds. That's going to be about it. We could see some gusts upwards of 50 to maybe 60 miles an hour. We have the tropical storm watches all across our coastline here in our region, going from Indian Pass back out over toward Destin. Right now, looking out over the Gulf of Mexico, just the cloud cover, and that's what we're going to deal with. And as a matter of fact, the next couple of days really are going to be not bad, pretty tolerable temperature-wise. The water temperatures right now mainly into the 80s, and you see the big surf is still lurking down to our south, and that's eventually going to be a big bit of a story here as this storm approaches our coastline. But let me show you what's going on. This is at midnight, so we've already gone through Friday, we've already gone through Saturday, and notice we don't even have that much activity around here. But then we go past midnight Sunday, and watch what happens. Very quickly, things begin to go downhill across our region. Here comes our storm system. Rain bands begin to move onshore. Our VIPIR model says landfall would probably occur across Okaloosa County. And keep in mind, if you're in Bay County, Gulf County, Walton County, that would put you on the not so friendly side of this storm system, that eastern side. So again, that'll be something that we're going to watch where this officially ends up coming in. And this is just one solution, but it does line up with the other models showing that kind of swath here across northwest Florida as far as where we might see the heavy rainfall. Your forecast overnight tonight. Lows will drop down 60s and 70s. Nothing to worry too much about. Again, tomorrow's not going to be a bad day. Probably more clouds than sunshine, but rain chances will still remain fairly low. I'll throw about a 30% chance in the forecast. I do expect red flags tomorrow, maybe double red flags. Certainly they'll go double red by Saturday. And our coastal waters, pretty rough conditions. Your VIPIR 7-day forecast will increase rain chances on Saturday. But I tell you what, guys, Friday won't be half bad. Most of Saturday will be okay. It's going to be that overnight Saturday night into Sunday time frame that's going to be bad. But I think by Sunday night, we'll actually have a pretty nice sunset here across our area, because this storm will move. It will move quickly. It's going slow now, but that's the key thing. It'll move quickly by the time it gets here.
We like the sound of that. Yeah. All right, thanks, Chris.